Your final meeting, could you please lead us in the pledge? Mrs. Kirby, could you start our roll call, please?
Pam Kirby, Kim Hartman,
George Jackson.
Barbara Perleberg.
And Bonnie Sneed. All members are present, and we have a quorum this evening. First item is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion? No.
I'd like to amend the agenda to, I'd like to move to amend the agenda to take item 8E, which is process and approval of the first bond rebuild project, which is currently an action item, and move it as an information item.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. George, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I'm good.
Opposed, or aye?
Well, I want to know why.
Dr. Birdwell, could you weigh in?
Yeah, maybe I misunderstood. I'd like to.
Is this live now? Okay, yes, so what happened is that,
Sorry, wrong side. Now we are. That is a information 2F. So somehow we split it out as E and F, and one is information and one is actually an action. So one is explaining the processes, and it's a summation of the work study, shortened version. So my apologies for that. It should have been information to begin with.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
Then I'm on board. Aye.
Thank you.
I can't get my reset off, so I don't want to speak to that.
There you go. I think I can,
No.
there. Did I get it?
Need a motion to
Okay,
approve
so are we
now.
moving that to an info discussion then?
Yes, so now I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Student and staff recognitions and celebrations. Dr. Birdwell.
We have many this evening. So at this time, I think we have a little bit difference in order, so I think we're going to go ahead and bring the first group up. And we apologize for the change in the order, but the bottom line is we're trying to orchestrate students in the hallway. And there are many.
And they're big.
We're going to start off with football.
And they're big.
1, 2, 1, 2, okay. Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Birdwell, we're going to cover you up for a moment here with 35 young men, so I'm going to barely be able to see you here shortly.
Is that this year's?
How you doing, Jay? Good to see you.
Proud, good job, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Okay, we don't want to smother them.
we're not intimidated at all, it's just awesome.
Fantastic.
One front line means the other front line, huh?
It's 35.
Wow.
Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations, yes.
Huge.
Okay. I'm pleased to to present these 35 young men, and there's many more of them, but 35 are here this evening with us. In front of you is the Class 4A state football champions from Sorora High School. Let's give them a hand. The SaberCats brought home the state title last month for the 4th consecutive year and the 9th out of the past 11 years, downing Tucson Catalina Foothills by a score of 42-14. Saguaro has a 25-game undefeated streak going, the state's longest active winning streak. Not only are these young men great athletes, they are great student athletes as well. 19 members of the team have a GPA of 3.5 or higher. 24 players have GPAs of between 3.0 and 3.9. That makes for 43 students on the varsity football team roster with GPAs of 3.0 or above. 3 students are on the USA Today's All-Arizona team, 11 students are on the USA Today's All-4A Conference first team. And then Khalid, Jarrell, step out for a minute because I want the board members to see you. Great.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
And our superintendent. Khalid will play for the West team in the annual U.S. Army All-American Bowl in San Antonio next month. He'll be someone will be keeping an eye on him, but he's also a part of this, is our coach, Jason Munns, will be there coaching the offense and the quarterbacks. And lastly, the team captain, and Brandon, can you step out too? Okay. Brandon Casey will receive the Ron Pritchard Linebacker Award from the Valley of the Sun chapter of the National Football Foundation. Great honor for both these young men and as well as our coach. We're sure other accolades were going to follow some of these young men and the entire team, but we couldn't be proud of everything this team has accomplished, not only this year, but the past 4 years under Coach Munns, and as well as Frank Rubin, who's here, one of the assistant coaches, as well as many other coaches that are on that football team. So we'll give our heartiest congratulations to this team, and we're super proud of you guys. Congratulations. I think Coach Munns has something for all of you up back there.
On behalf of our football team, Madam President, we want to present you with a game ball from the state championship game signed by our 2016 varsity team.
Oh,
Thank you.
All right.
make sure.
Okay.
So the audience can see you too. Yeah, show them to the audience.
You bet. Carefully.
Okay. Let them get some air now.
Bonnie, let me see that. Oh, I know, it's beautiful. Wow.
Awesome.
Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations,
Nicely done.
and thank you.
Absolutely.
I did that game. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, you bet.
Congratulations.
We don't want to mess those names up there.
No, we don't.
Wow. Okay, so that was our kind of our reverse order. Now I think we're going back to Dr. Sakos, who has some recognitions this evening.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Birdwell, and Jill. That is truly a tough act to follow. I will tell you, Mr. McKenzie mentioned these student athletes for their academics, for their athleticism, but I can also tell you a lot of stories about their exemplary character as well. They are one of our leaders in positive behavior intervention and supports, exemplifying great character on campus and leadership. If you recall, Saguaro was one of our leading campuses, and I can tell you many great stories of the student athletes, particularly Saguaro, that have done just that, even in tough competitive situations. So, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here actually to recognize 3 of our campuses who submitted for the Arizona annual PBIS Film Festival that's hosted at what's called the Betsy Behavior Education Technology Conference here locally. And once again, our PBIS, our Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports, again, is to establish those behavioral expectations of respect and responsibility that, again, the students share and exemplify not only in the classroom but out of the classroom. So I'm going to call up a few individuals who were leaders in their submissions and their award-winning films this past October. Chris Asmussen from Mojave Middle School, Julie Young, if you're here, from Desert Canyon Elementary, and Haley Fortney from Copper Ridge School. Please come up and join me. Oh, well, we have Miss Wendy Allen, everybody. Okay, very good. So from Mojave Middle School, they actually had a student-written and directed and narrated film that showed how students can receive their positive recognition. And the student who directed it and all the students did a phenomenal job and walked away with an award winner. From Desert Canyon Elementary, students and staff showed off their psychedelic imagination and creativity, rewriting the Beatles. Obada. Okay, I can't carry a tune, but I can't say it either. So they did a fabulous job with that. And from Copper Ridge School, students wrote, produced, acted in a video that showed the CRS way. And all of our students, our teachers, our administrators, congratulations for representing Scottsdale Unified so well and continuing to uphold such positive expectations and leadership on your campuses. Thank you.
Had an opportunity to sit in a meeting for PBIS and was extremely impressed. Dr. Sakos is an amazing leader in this area, so I thank her for her leadership. Next, we have Dr. McNeil with a couple of awards. He's going to start with Maricopa County Clean Air Awards, Cochise Elementary.
That is right. Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Birdwell, and Jill. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make these tonight. I would like Gina Aikman, the assistant principal from Cochise Elementary, to come to the podium. That would be great. As you most likely know, Maricopa County, with its 80 million commuter miles that are driven every single week and day, has a serious problem with carbon monoxide, ozone, and air pollution. The county's Trip Reduction Program, or TRIP for short, focuses on employers and schools and its efforts to convince motorists to not drive alone to work every day, but ride share, carpool, use public transportation, or some alternative means of transportation. Any program such as this requires a lot of communication, and after all, you know, you got to convince people to get out of their cars or share their cars, and that's not very easy. Each trip site is required to have a widely visible bulletin board where employees can find information out about the program. Well, 3 of our schools, Sequoia Elementary, Desert Canyon Elementary, and Cochise Elementary schools, were finalists for this year's People Choice Most Creative Bulletin Board Award. Cochise's entry took up the #1 honor and recognized at the county's annual Clean Air Awards luncheon on November 1st. To accomplish this, Cochise had to beat out some of the valley's largest employers. This wasn't just schools, this was businesses, corporations, etc. And Cochise beat everybody out. Please join me in congratulating Assistant Principal Gina Aikman and Principal Sheila Miller on this outstanding county-wide recognition in their school's commitment to Valley's clean air. Way to go, Cochise. Next up, I would like our own SUSD's state champ, Kathy Anderson, Coach Anderson, if she's here. I think she's our state champ when it comes to adaptive PE.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Yes, she deserves a big round of applause. Let's first talk about adaptive physical education, or APE, is the name of our comprehensive inclusion-based program designated for special needs students in the Scottsdale Unified School District. It encompasses physical education, community-based instruction, and development of the students' academic, social and emotional, and behavioral development. APE is also a unique peer mediating program through which peer students, kindergarten through high school, are trained on how to best understand the strengths of each student they work with and how they learn best. We agree with the state that, and the Arizona Health and Physical Education Organization, that we have the best adaptive PE teacher in the state of Arizona, and that is Kathy Anderson. Kathy splits her time between Redfield, Cocopah, Chaparral, and Desert Mountain. That's 4 schools. She's busy. And is the district's lead adaptive PE teacher. We owe a huge thanks and a congratulations to Kathy because she's amazing. So yay.
I had an opportunity in my career to teach adaptive physical education and write curriculum in that area, and I have to tell you, I commend you. It is very difficult work. It's all individualized. Thank you for being a state leader. Well done.
Thank you.
We now have Dr. Von Echten, who's going to speak to us about another award and special recognition of a school in our district.
In fact, I have a few. If I could first have, Madam President, governing board members, I have several announcements and recognitions to make. First, if we could have Mountainside ELA teacher Johanna Kaiser and Principal Terry Kellen join me at the podium, that would be just wonderful. There they are. The College Board has named Mountainside Middle School a Springboard English Language Arts National Demonstration School for the 26th through 2018 school years. Mountainside is the first middle school in the state of Arizona to earn this designation. As such, it will serve as a model site for schools around the country that are implementing Springboard, a comprehensive College Board instructional program aimed at improving language arts instruction and learning through rigorous coursework, active learning, and robust professional development. Here at Mountainside, Principal Terry Kellen here with me is Mountainside Terry Kellen, 8th and 8th grade ELA teacher Joanna Kaiser, representing the school's English Language Arts team, which also includes 6th grade teachers Ashley Balling-Story, Judy Bitnick, 7th grade teacher Penny Davis Dyer, and fellow 8th grade teacher Erica Ursick. Well done. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, if I could have Mojave teacher Vicki White join me. Is Vicki here? All right, go social studies. Mojave Middle School 6th, 7th grade social studies teacher Vicki White and 7th to 8th grade teacher is Mary McBride with us tonight? Oh, sorry. Spent part of their summer taking part in a geography institute conducted by the Arizona Geographic Alliance at ASU. During the 11-day graduate level course, Vicki and Mary attended lectures and field experiences focused on geography and STEM content, sessions related to teaching Arizona's geography standards, workshops to develop classroom teaching strategies and geography materials, and a practicum on how to prepare effective in-service presentations for their SUSD colleagues. Vicki also represented at Vicki also presented at Geo Conference 2016, which qualifies her to be called an AZGA teacher consultant. Vicki and Mary were among 18 Arizona teachers chosen for the institute that was aimed at ways of integrating STEM with the study of social studies and, in particular, geography, all in an effort to revitalize geography education. Nice work, Vicki. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
All right, and lastly, I got another team to join us, the Chaparral Theater Troupe and teachers Ed Como and Sandy Flayton. Can they come on up? Everyone. Sure, line up here, guys.
Just do it the football. Just line up.
for joining us. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the 4-time Arizona State Thespian Festival Tech Challenge champions from Chaparral High School.
Wow.
The team of Sarah Harpino, Dakota Oliveira, Jordan Rowley, and Mac Woods combined to defeat 56 other teams from around the state, earning the right to hand on to the Golden Fresnel Trophy for yet another year. We should also note at this point that Mac earned a superior rating for his lighting design, and he scored a new state record at the competition for his light hang time of 47 seconds. Not sure what that is. If our football punter was here, I could explain perhaps, but not with that. Sarah earned a superior rating for costume design and was selected as a Critics' Choice for Best Presentation in that category. And Jordan earned a superior rating for sound design and was selected as Critics' Choice for Best Presentation in that category. In the individual event competitions, Ellie Hoffman received a perfect score. Are we rotating? Okay, good, nice, right on cue. Ellie received a perfect score and a superior rating for contrasting monologues. Rebecca Steiner earned a superior rating for solo musical. Gianna Augustinelli, Noah Gothair, Sam Primek earned a superior rating for group musical. Sorry about the names. Chaparral also received a superior rating in the duo acting category. The team of Molly Dickinson and Marina Seaver were also selected as Critics' Choice for their performance, earning the right to perform their scene before the entire festival audience. Wow. Lastly, the entire Chaparral troupe earned Golden Honor status yet again. Yes, yay. Congratulations to all of the students and to the Yes?
A duet musical solo. We also had the students Kate Hossel and Maria Walker, who received straight superiors for their duet musical, and that was awesome as well.
I never stray from the script, Mr. Como. I'm sorry. I don't.
So students, just to add my congratulations, in my career, the best class, the class that I enjoyed the most as a teacher was when I taught theater arts. So I have to tell you that the lessons that you learn in that class you take with you the rest of your life. I have never regretted a moment of the time I spent with my students. And so well done. I am so impressed with all of the accolades you're receiving this evening. Congratulations.
All right, congratulations. Well done.
You can fill it all up, right?
Well done.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Eventually it'll just stay at Chaparral, right? There you go.
The Golden Fresnel.
So that is the end of the celebrations at this moment, but as you can see, we have wonderful teachers working with our students and coaches doing great work. So to all of the principals who are here, again, thank our teachers for our terrific work that they've been doing for our students. Well done.
The next item on our agenda is public comment. And this is the portion of the SUSD Governing Board meeting where we invite the public to make comments. Although not required to do so, the Governing Board values the input of the community, and we feel it's an important part of communication with our stakeholders. For agenda matters, well, there are cards in the back to fill out for agenda matters or non-agenda matters. For the non-agenda matters, please take note that action taken as a result of this type of public comment will be limited to responding to any criticism made by those who have addressed the governing board, or directing staff to look into the matter, or asking that the matter be put on a future agenda. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.01G, no other discussion or legal action is allowed. Please keep in mind that public comments represent the personal view of the speaker and may contain incomplete or inaccurate information. If the item is an agenda item, we encourage audience members to stay and listen to the discussion pertaining to that agenda item to gain a more full understanding. Please approach the microphone when your name is called and in the order called. Mrs. Vice President Perleberg will cue you with cue cards telling you how much time you have. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. And in all cases, public comment is subject to reasonable subject matter, place, and manner restrictions. And please word your comments so that they're not defamatory or disrespectful in nature. We have one agenda card tonight, and that would be Mr. Michael Norton.
Thank you for letting me speak. And before we go forward, I was really hoping that George would have the cards tonight, since it would be the last night that you could wave that card angrily at me and tell me to stop.
I could take over, Mike.
I want to thank you.
We all have them. No.
All of you need a card when I speak, I know that. I want to thank you, Mrs. Sneed, for serving for the board, on our board for as many years as you had, and George, the same to you. I respected your commitment for the years that you've served, and I admired your undaunted commitment to our schools. We've disagreed several times, but I've always respected your commitment to our schools, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I also want to thank our new board members who are sitting here for showing the guts to step into a very difficult job with a great paycheck and a lot of criticism. And I am here to offer some of that criticism tonight. We have a large bond that's in our hands. We have the opportunity to build a lot of schools. We have the chance to do great things for the district. And we also have the chance to commit the district to a spending plan that we can't sustain. The financial sustainability of a school is unfortunately limited by the pittance that the state will provide to us to run our schools. And while we would like to have a school on every corner, we would like to have a small school with 200 or 300 kids and a cozy family atmosphere, the financial reality doesn't allow that. Every time we make a commitment to put a school in place and to operate that school, we're taking one chip off the table, and we don't have 19 chips of M&O funding that allow us to build other schools. It's a very difficult step that has to be taken as we go forward, and if we make mistakes, not only do we have underused schools at one side of the district, but we also impose a penalty on the rest of the schools. The very harsh reality of the allocation of teachers in our district is probably the greatest indicator of what happens when we have small schools and large schools competing for that limited resource. We have schools that receive 50 to 100% more teachers per student than other schools in the district, just because they're smaller schools and there's not enough funding available. Other schools go without, and the larger schools seem to be the punished schools. If I'm a middle school operator here, a principal at a middle school, a K-8, or Hopi, I'm going to have one of the lowest ratios of teachers to students of any school in the district, and it's an inevitable result of the decision to build too many small schools. It's a very unpopular thing to say, but we need to rethink the commitments to the building of smaller schools and consider for a moment the effect that it's having on teachers and students at the larger schools, and not just saying no to the smaller schools that still operate. George, hold that sign up for me for 1 second, would you please? And that's all I have to say. I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Norton. Julie Siniowski.
Good evening, board members, Madam President, Dr. Birdwell, and Jill. There are many people out there who try to define our success. In our unique world of education, the term success can mean many different things. As we saw here this evening, those were some great examples of success. To a teacher, it could be as simple as a student showing up for class, responding to topic discussions in class, showing marked improvements personally or academically, or even participating in those high-stake performances, like we saw this evening as well. Some of these successes are evident at the moment, and some over a lifetime. I'd like to make comment on the importance of the work all of you do as school board members. Over the years, you have made commitments to our community, which we may not know the immediate or the positive results for quite some time. It's through your decisions you create opportunities, you show value, you make lives happen, you craft important vocations, and you create a sense of purpose. Sorry, I wasn't going to do that. But I do care so much about the work that you do and everyone in this room does. As we end this current calendar year, we also say goodbye to a couple of you, Board Member Jackson and President Sneed. I want to congratulate you for serving our school board successfully and to thank you for your commitment to our Scottsdale schools, our children, their families, and all of the employees. It is through your hard work and your ability to make those important and tough decisions that our district and the people in it will continue to craft a strong legacy of success. We are grateful and much obliged. Thank you.
Chris Thuman. Chris?
Thank you, Madam President, board members, Dr. Birdwell, Jill. Proud principal Chris Thuman at Ingleside Middle School. Also, proud Holcomb resident down the street. So got two hats here. Depends if I put the badge in the pocket or not. I have a quick story. I want to recognize one of our own staff for something that happened yesterday on my campus, and I think it deserves a quick recognition. But to Ms. Sneed and Mr. Jackson, thanks for your years of service. 11 years here. I think, Bonnie, you've been here through most of it, and George, you've been through a lot here with us too, so thank you for your years of service. Susan Doyle, would you stand up real quick while I'm telling the story? Susan Doyle is our new director of HR. And yesterday on my campus, I had a meeting with HR. And at 7:15, my meeting was supposed to start, but Susan wasn't there. And HR is never late. Dr. Sitton will tell you that. HR is not late. At about the same time as I'm getting ready to text Susan, I get a call on the radio that a student was hit by a car. Like, oh my God. A week before Christmas, so a nurse, myself, some staff run out. Luckily, there wasn't a student hit by a car. A student crashed his bike on the curb and fell and cut his head. But there's Susan with her car off to the side of the road with tissues in her hand, holding against the cut on his head while the paramedics are coming and we're getting out there. So I wanted to make sure we recognize not only is she director of HR, maybe a nurse, first aid, CPR certified, whatever else, but I want to make sure going into the holidays, that family, that student was comforted, was well taken care of as the rest of us got out there, and I want to make sure Susan got recognition for it, so thank you.
Nancy Hudson.
Good evening, Board President Sneed, governing board members, Dr. Birdwell and Jill. As president of the SAA, the Administrative Association, we just want to give our heartfelt thank you to Board Member Sneed and Board Member Jackson for your years of service and help and just everything that you've given to us, and we all appreciate that so much. So we do want to thank you so very much and wish you the best and hope we still see you once in a while. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comments. Next is superintendent comments. Dr. Birdwell.
Thank you, Board President Sneed.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say that a little bit tonight, because you won't get to hear it for a while.
Oh, that's okay.
Till you get that next volunteer moment. Let me do a couple quick announcements, and then I'm going to switch places. I'm going to come out there and actually spend a moment talking about Board President Sneed and Member Jackson. So let me start off, though. Let me get the business out of the way, and then we'll get into that piece. Couple quick moments for you to know about. Open enrollment is about to close, but you need to know that 1,372 students have enrolled in the Scottsdale district as an open enrollment. And those families will be guaranteed to know by February 1st, and hopefully even a little bit before that, that they're joining a great family of educators. Niche ranking. This week, the Scottsdale Unified School District has been named the third best school district in the state of Arizona by Niche and a 2017 best school district in America. That's up 9 places from last year. So Niche is the largest website for researching public and private K-12 schools in the United States. So a nice little recognition for the school district. And first Lego League Robotics Tournament last week, Mojave Middle School hosted the competition for the 4th time. The event was organized entirely by Saguaro High School robotics students, but they were also sponsored by the Mojave students. The 7th grader, Lillian Russell, won the Mentor Award for her mentoring of the Kiva School team. She also competes for Mojave. Also deserving of recognition are Mojave 7th grader Colin Hutton and 8th grader Ben Steinberg, who did a yeoman's work supporting the tournament. Saguaro's Lucky Lim was given the volunteer award, and Yavapai art teacher Kay King won the coach award. So again, we continue to grow in the area of robotics, and we're very, very pleased with all that's going on in that area. Now, Saguaro principal, Ann, would you please come up? You know what, I think I'll just go out there. It's time to come out there. So Ann and I share something. We have this title called interim. So Ann is our interim Saguaro High School principal. So it's my duty this evening to congratulate her, and I am removing the interim title, and you are the principal of Saguaro High School. So in my years as an administrator, time to time we've done surveys on how someone is doing with their staff. Never in my career have I had 92% of the staff say they like what this principal is doing. So I have to say that's some of the highest statistics that we've ever received from a staff on how pleased they are. But what makes this situation unique is Ann came in, replaced some really big shoes, and brought a brand new team with her. So this would have been really what one would typically have said, the perfect it's going to go bad moment. And it's been fantastic. She has done a terrific job, but I think part of that to do to the training that she's had, so let me just brag on her for a moment. So she was the assistant principal at Saguaro, but before then she spent 4 years as an assistant principal at Mojave Middle School and 2 years then at the Saguaro in the same capacity. But, she came to us from the business world as well. Am I getting that right? So Ann first came to us in 2003 after volunteer activities through her Arizona Fortune 500 company made her realize that she had to get involved with youth and educators. And I really think that it's that passion that makes her such an outstanding leader. She was first hired to teach arts at Cocopa Middle School, and since then her experience run the gamut. She had a high school math teacher, she was service learning, she does her Mountain IB program, the alternative school, she even did the service learning coordinator's position. But I think it's all of that depth and that breadth that lets her lead with such great capacity and conviction. So I am thrilled to name her the principal and take away that interim title. Well, all righty. Did you want to say something to him? Did you? You can.
Yes. Madam President, Governing Board members, Dr. Birdwell, Jill, thank you very much. It is a humbling and honoring experience to be able to support and lead the Saguaro learning community. So thank you for this opportunity. We are going to continue on with the great things that we are doing for the community. Thank you again for your support.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, if I can work everything right here.
Oh dear.
I'm going to put a little picture up here for you. So we had a swearing in at the beginning of the board meeting, and so we're going to take you back in time here for just a moment. I don't have 100 pictures here, but George, I couldn't help this moment. They found this picture today, and I went, how perfect is that? So for those of you who were here, you didn't really know what you were getting into, did you?
I knew enough to be scared.
Well, let me tell you something. While you've been serving, the district has had an A rating 4 years in a row. We've had A+ schools, blue ribbon schools, world-renowned academics, arts, athletics. You've witnessed the district high school graduations that have been in the 90s. You saw the destination of multiple, you've been at those celebrations with those A+ schools. You've congratulated statewide and subject area teachers of the year. You have seen state football championships, soccer championships, tennis, cheer, pom, track, golf, swim, and basketball and baseball. So you've seen a lot of accolades for our students, and as you saw tonight, the fine arts, various awards in our choral programs, in our acting programs, our theater programs. You've implemented new grading systems. To some, they've liked that, others have not, but you've held the true test of that. So we've had a lot of connections, but more than that, you've also connected with our community. I should have been using that. You've had a lot of successes. You have represented the district well in the community events. You've brought together the new bus program, been a part of that piece in the foundation, been a part of the educational foundation. You've served on state boards. You've been an active member in ASBA. You serve on the professional advisory board for certifications. Bonnie, I know you and I are on opposite groups of that. Huge responsibility that decides whether a teacher keeps their certification or loses that certification. You've reached across the aisle, sometimes with political disagreements, but you've made that effort for one reason and one reason only: the best interests of Scottsdale and its students. And that is to be commended. It's been an amazing journey that the two of you have taken. You've had the ability to oversee some passing of some bonds and some overrides. You've seen some failures, and then you came back and you had some passing of that. You've walked those streets, you've talked to the community, you've explained why it's important to support our schools. You've worked with various parent groups. You've supported the expansion of world languages. We have Russian, Japanese, Mandarin Chinese in our K-5 schools. You've approved FLY programs and allowed those programs to continue to grow. You've attended groundbreaking ceremonies. You've planted trees in the anniversaries of schools. And you've accepted the most critical role, and that is the financial fiduciary oversight of a school district. The bottom line is you've made a district very, very proud, and you've done a lot of work while you've been here. And you held the course during difficult times and times that were a little smoother. But the reality is I don't think you quite knew what you signed up for when you joined. But in the end, I hope that we've given you more than you realized you could take with you, and that it's been a little bit of a gift. At the end of this board meeting, we're going to celebrate these two. This is just the first part of it. But we didn't want to miss this moment in case someone had to leave, and we wanted to make sure that we had this on the record, on that web page, recorded to say thank you from the depths of our hearts for the work that you've done for this district. Scottsdale would not be where it is today without your effort, your support, and your leadership. A lot of people don't really understand the role of a governing board as they're voted in. They're not paid, you know, they don't get that extra check for all this extra time, but they spend hours and hours going through the financial records, the board agenda items, preparing that boardsmanship. And I have to just say this, it's not an easy task. It's a very difficult task. And you will never make all people happy. And we know that because you've been there while people have been here. So thank you for that. At the end of this meeting, we have some special awards and a reception. We hope people will stay, but in case you don't, from the depths of our hearts, thank you for your service, and thank you for serving Scottsdale community.
Thank you.
Thank you. George, did you want to say anything?
Now, you think? I had a whole speech prepared. This has been incredibly touching, and I'm very grateful. I think Bonnie is too. I'll make this real quick. When Barbara and I came on the school board 4 years ago, we were in a very different place, as Dr. Birdwell alluded to, with two failed overrides, and it was some tough days for all of us with cutting programs and all of that. And thankfully, our community came together and passed the override 2 years ago and passed this wonderful bond. And, you know, I think anytime you join an organization, you know, you hope when you leave, it's in a little better place than when you came. And I think through the hard work of so many people and the support of our community and some luck, I think we are in a much better place than we were 4 years ago. We have an incredible new superintendent, wonderful leadership team, and I just want to say it has been an honor and a privilege to sit on this board and serve with my fellow board members up here. I have never done anything like this before, and I've, through this journey, have come to have incredible respect for the work that goes on here in this school district every day. Teachers and educators are heroes, plain and simple. The work that's done here is honorable. They do it incredibly well. And we are charged with, if you think about it, with an unbelievable task, and that is to take every student that shows up, from special needs to gifted, and transport them, feed them, educate them, give them nursing care, nurture them, and send them hopefully on their way. And I think we do a damn good job of it, all things considered, in a, frankly, a very tough environment, as we all know public schools are under. And we do, all things considered, a hell of a job. And you know, I guess I'm gonna miss all my friends here. Serving and supporting the teaching that goes on here has been a gift to me. And again, like I said, it's been a huge privilege. Thank you.
I should have said that the two of you served during the most difficult years in the state of Arizona. 8 years of financial reductions, and yet you kept your head high and continued to lead. And there were, in the history, we've never had the kind of issues that we faced the last 8 years. So, you know, again, just, George, thank you so much. Bonnie, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, just to put it in perspective a little bit, it's been I've been on the board for 8 years, and 7 of those years we had cuts, even when our local community was very supportive of us. Somehow the state couldn't quite catch up. We had no idea when we started that there would be a recession that I've never experienced in my lifetime. I worked with John Barrissey, superintendent, then David Peterson and Katie Kavanaugh when they were here for interim, Gary Catalani when he was here, David Peterson again, and now Dr. Birdwell. And the governing board members that I have worked with over the years were Karen Beckvar, Dr. Eric Meyer, Jennifer Peterson, Dieter Schaefer, Denny Brown, Pam Kirby, Barbara Perleberg, George Jackson, and Kim Hartman. And I can honestly say that every single one of those people have touched me over the years and have, I've learned from everyone. And I'd like to welcome our 2 new board members. I wish you the very best of luck. And hopefully you won't have to go through some of the stuff that and it wasn't just Scottsdale, it was all of the districts across the state. Thank you for having trust and confidence in my judgment. I did the best I could, and I just wanted to say that there's a lot of negative out there if you want to find it. There are a lot of people who are fighting against public education. The North Carolina state superintendent just left office, and one of her comments was, we all have to advocate. We have to advocate every single day. We know the public school isn't failing. And we have to remind people that there might be pockets that have that problem, but it's not all across public education. She challenged everybody to fight for public education for all children at every opportunity, and reminded her colleagues that no organization can thrive by disparaging their workforce. So I want to thank all of you who helped us accomplish the things that Denise told us about, and again, very best of luck to the continuing board.
Yep, clap, yeah. So for my final comment, at the conclusion of the meeting, we have some gifts and an opportunity for some refreshments, and we hope that you stay around for that. You know, again, we can't thank these two board members enough, but taking advantage of the superintendent's comment section, I didn't want to not have a moment of history there. So we do ask that you stay after the board meeting for that reception, and we look forward to, trust me, they're not going far away. I'm sure there'll be a few committees that they will be willing to serve on, so we'll see their faces occasionally.
And everybody knows we do this for the free food.
Absolutely.
So the next item on the agenda is consent agenda. Oh, okay. I am asking that I'm going to, let's see, how do I do this? Remove item 7B so that I can recuse myself. Mrs. Hartman?
I'd like to pull item 7F with a comment when we get that to that point.
Okay, and Mrs. Kirby?
I was simply going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 7B as in boy and 7F.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. So item 7B, we will address individually, and it's accounts payable vouchers processed from November 16th through November 30th, 2016. And because I am a board member on one of the organizations that's included in those vouchers, I am recusing myself. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh,
Yeah, we need a motion.
Yeah, I move to approve item 7B.
I thought that's what I did, okay. And I thought, I made a motion, George, didn't you?
Well, you explained why you recused
Oh,
yourself.
okay,
If you-
okay, I'm
so-
sorry.
We have a-
I lost track there.
That's all right. We have a motion on the floor from Mrs. Kirby.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 That motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. And also, item 7F, approval of minutes of November 22nd, regular governing board meeting.
Right.
Mrs. Hartman?
Thank you, President Sneed. I just had a correction to the November 22nd minutes under future items. I would like to have it included. I had a request for a future item for, we add a work study discussion item to discuss employee engagement survey and assessment. So if we could add that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Would you like, can we make a motion with that adjustment to pass that item?
Yes.
Okay. So with the addition of the future item in 7F, approval of minutes for November 22nd, 2016 regular governing board meeting, I move to accept the minutes as adjusted.
Second it.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, that motion passes 5-0. Thank you. The next item is item 8A, an action item, possible vote to convene in executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1 for discussion or consideration of post superintendent contract. Also, I'll finish reading that. B, pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 and 4, for discussion or consultation for legal advice with governing board's attorney for legal advice regarding proposed superintendent contract, and in order for the board to consider its position and instruct its attorney regarding the same. And just for a point of clarification, we did already have one executive session regarding this item, and it was Thursday. So it's not necessary. If it's not necessary, we can move on. Any discussion? Okay, we'll just move on. The next item is item 8B, approval of the 2016-17 superintendent contract for Dr. A. Denise Birdwell. Mrs. Kirby.
I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Vice President Perleberg and Board Member Hartman for taking the lead to negotiate a contract with Dr. Birdwell on behalf of the board. I don't know how many hours of work you put into it, but I assume it was, by the stack of versions that Board Member Hartman has in front of her, it was quite a few, and you came out with a really, really good product. So thank you very much for your efforts on that, and I'm ready to make a motion unless anyone else has any comments.
Mrs. Hartman, you also had a comment? I wanted to take time to thank you both, too, for all of the work that you did. Mrs. Hartman?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to, first of all, thanking all the board members as well as leadership to work through this process in a very efficient manner. It's very productive. There were 2 points in this contract that I'd like to pull out that I think really speak to, validate our decision regarding Dr. Birdwell and are a testament to her leadership. And there were 2 components in the contract that really represented something bigger than Dr. Birdwell. It was the district, and it was quite a bit of conversation, but Dr. Birdwell represented those 2 things well. And the first was our superintendent contract for a long time has been on a calendar year versus a fiscal year. And if this was purely done in the best interest of an individual, the goal would have been to continue that process and secure a 3-year agreement. But the reality is to put the district in the very best position in future superintendent selection was to get back on the fiscal year, so a 6/30 year end. And so without hesitation, Dr. Birdwell saw that as a benefit to the district and agreed to getting this contract back on that cycle. So I really appreciated that. The second point, we had quite a bit of conversation around performance, and we had a lot of conversation on how to measure that, and that's been a really difficult, it is a very difficult thing to measure performance in any organization. But without a doubt, once again, we had conversation, and it was Dr. Birdwell who actually offered the recommendation, and I'd like to find it just really quickly here. I had it a minute ago. And what we talked about in terms of measuring performance is that it needs to be balanced performance. And of course, we're all here because of our students and academic achievement. But what Dr. Birdwell offered is that we're going to continue to measure performance, and it's up to us as board members to define the details of that. But it's balanced in terms of measuring academic achievement, fiscal, academic focus, community partnerships, and employee organizational health, recognizing that all those stakeholders are important components of a successful district. So once again, thank you, Dr. Birdwell, for seeing the district in the larger perspective.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I will make a motion for the approval of the 2016 through 2019 superintendent contract for Dr. A. Denise Birdwell.
Thank you, Ms. Perleberg.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Kirby. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Congratulations, Dr.
Thank you,
Birdwell.
President Sneed. I'd also, So Ann, we both get to remove our interim title together. I wanted to just take a moment to thank Denise Lobert, who was in the back, who was the board's attorney during this process, and the time that she committed from Udall Shumway to have this go so smooth. Again, the process was a very smooth process focused on our district, and I appreciated that opportunity, so thank you.
The next item on the agenda is item 8C. It'll be the sale of the bond resolution. And Mr. O'Brien.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Birdwell, Jill. This evening, we are asking for action to be taken to approve the resolution to sell $45 million worth of the bond proceeds starting right now, and hopefully have that done by the second week in February, as discussed last Thursday at the work study. We had some discussion about the tax rate and where it can be, remembering that we discussed that we could make it from the 40 to the 45 and still stay under the 61 cents as discussed and promised to the taxpayers and the stakeholders of Scottsdale Unified School District. If there are any questions, I do have some friends to help back here. If there's technical questions, but I will take any questions.
Mrs. Hartman is, no, okay. So because the, what was the public?
We talked about 40, right? It was, and so now we're in the 45, which is a difference.
So do we need an amendment to the agenda because of that?
No, so the conversation that we're having, when we went out and did presentations in the public, we talked about 40 million. It does not, so we're asking for a $45 million, so there's two reasons for that. One is that we can stay within the 61 cents. The other piece of it is the first sale will be the lowest interest that we're going to receive for the next year and a half, as predicted by financial advisors. So being fiscally responsible, we want to sell as much as we can with the lowest percentile in order to manage the money of the taxpayers to the best of our ability. It doesn't mean that all of that is spent next year. It means that it's sold and locked into an interest rate, just for clarity. So they're fine with the way that it's written at the 45, correct?
Yes.
Okay, the agenda that I have recommends 40, and so I just want to make sure that that's pulled out. The difference is actually 45. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that the governing board deem advisable, adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of school improvement bonds of the district. This is the first sale of $45 million of the $229 million bond approved by the voters on November 8th. Ms. Kirby?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Jackson?
Sorry. I need to abstain from this, Board Member Sneed. I just thought I'd put that out there. My apologies.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, thank you for letting us know about that. So then we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That motion passes 4-0 with one abstention from Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
bond counsel and financial folks, thanks for being here in case we had a question.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien, for all of your work, thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is item 8D, I believe. Process and approval of first bond rebuild project. Dr. Birdwell.
Sign language. President Sneed, Governing Board. What I'm going to do is a shortened version to the work study so that the public gets to hear some of what we talked about last Thursday. So not to bore you with some of the same conversation, but I think it's critical that the public understand the bonding process. So again, thank you for the opportunity to explain to our community what our steps will be. So again, just to reiterate that when the community gives the board the opportunity to have bonds, the governing board has a fiscal responsibility. Authorizing the sale, which we just did, is critical to hit the time frame and be good stewards of the money of the community. Prioritizing of expenditures gets to be very difficult, especially in a district of this size with the dollars that we're talking about. And we'll be going through that process every 3 months. It's not an ending process, it's a living process that we will be undertaking. Hiring of architectural firms, of construction firms, is a process that the staff will do on your behalf, but the final approval is yours to do. Notifying the community yearly of those expenditures, and there is a committee that actually has an oversight to assure that you didn't overspend the dollars of the taxpayers, to make sure that you followed the rules. Approving of the designs, the final design put together is always that of a governing board. So sometimes a community doesn't like a certain build and they like to look at the architect, or they look at the construction firm and they go, boy, I really hate that construction firm, that's ugly. What they don't understand is we designed it. So we really do own that moment. They just build what it is that we give them. So hopefully we'll be good stewards of that process. It's important to have a timeline of construction so you understand what's going on and the community understands. So when fences are coming up and going down and kids are being moved, that we clearly communicate that, and that we communicate in multiple forums. Monitor the appropriate expenditures, can't say that enough. The superintendent and staff have as a responsibility. We have a bond budget balancing process that we bring to you, a bond strategic planning process that we bring. The board can always move an item up or down or to another fiscal year at your leisure, but our job is to bring you what we believe are the best plans. We implement those projects that you approve. We help with the selection of a bond committee for fiscal review, and they actually are holding you fiscally responsible, and us, but it's really the governing board who has the final fiscal authority. Project reports and updates will bring you constant project updates and reports during the building of a school. Yearly enrollment growth and decline need to come before the board with the accuracy of in-district and out-of-district, and we are finally at the place where in January we're going to bring you enrollment where we can show you where every student lives and where they come from, and we have people coming and driving here from Fountain Hills, and believe it or not, we even have some students who come from Higley. We're happy to bring them over. So expenditure, yearly enrollment decline, yes. Expenditures including categorical percentages, because remember that the law says that you can't go 10% higher than the areas that you've told the voters that you will do. So we need to make sure we put them into categories. Measurable data on the impact of the expenditures on instructional practice. So we want to, if we come and put a science wing in, or we come and we change the classroom for robotics, to come back and talk about how that's affected the learning in the program in that school, so that you understand the impact of those decisions that you're making. The district design team, superintendent or a designee, an architectural firm, a school principal, the director of maintenance and operation, who, he has his feet on the ground at all times. I don't go up on the roof, but he's seen the roof. So we need him in those conversations. Our chief systems officer, because they study the IT and the infrastructure and the heat maps that show us where we have wireless, where we don't, whether or not that information highway can handle the amount of computers that we're bringing in, or that the PTO has actually gifted us. Having the director of nutritional services in those discussions to make sure that we design the very best service for the health needs of our students during nutritional services. The director of transportation to make sure that we're not mixing buses and cars and walkers and cars. And we have a chance to fix some of these transportation issues that we have in our schools. The security officer, chief security officer, to make sure that we are creating the schools of the future that provide the very best safe schools. And any assistant superintendent who has to deal with student academic programs and curriculum, because we want to make sure that our schools are built around learning. And remember that we never forget in the design process that we get to do this but once. And we've done a great job in Scottsdale of having schools that have lasted 50 and 60 years, so we need to be conscientious of that. The architectural firm meets with the school committee. So the school community gets engaged. So the chief financial officer, the principal, at least 3 teachers, 3 parents, community at large, individual get to meet in a small group to work on that design and talk about the learning in that school and give that architectural team the ideas and help them with the imagination of schooling for our children. And then they take that information through the design process back up through the district, back to the governing board, giving you an update, and back out to the community again. And then there's a large forum for the community to come in and see those designs and how it will impact the quality of life that they have in their community. Right now, we asked two companies, Hunt Caraway and Orcott Winslow, to give us a little bit of a visual to understand. So we did 4 case studies, and I'm going to show those a little bit shorter version. So here was it, our first case study. This is our most complex case study that we have, and to explain why. To build a school on the backside of that particular lot and still keep school open is a challenge. Every building in this school is occupied by students. 850 plus students reside in this site. So it's no easy task. This is the most complicated that we have. So it is the building of the classroom building first, the pre-K and 5 grades, then the administrative building, which is also a collaborative technology space along with some classroom places in there. The nurse is housed in that area. And then putting in the library, the new kindergarten drop-off. We need to make sure that as we go forward, we get cars off the streets and appropriate drop-offs, bus on one side of campus, parents on another side of campus, so that we separate this. Phase 2, the school gets opened, and guess what? The old school gets torn down. And all of ours have a bit of a challenge because they're all built with asbestos. So every school that we rebuild, if we choose to rebuild them, will have a little extra component to them. So we look at the timing of that to where we can do it and contain it in an appropriate manner. Then we start to rebuild the fields for our students. And then a final phase process where we actually have the full campus turned over to us. These designs, we asked them the time frames on them, and they gave us a 21-month time frame. And that's from the very start of the design to the very turnover key. And then, believe it or not, you have a year past that where you're doing a checklist of construction errors and calling them back, and this light switch didn't work the way that it should have, or this piece of carpet keeps popping up. And so that goes on for a while later, and our maintenance and operation department is heavily engaged in that. It's no simple task. During the design phase, we're also working with cities. We have 3 municipalities we'll be working with. We have Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, and Phoenix. Here's another example, another case study, a different school. Here you can see you have a lot of field space, so it makes it a tad bit easier. And by the way, none of these designs are set. None of them have been developed beyond give us a visual so that people understand the complexity of what we're dealing with. But in this particular case, you can see that you can go to the back of the property if that's what we choose to do. This has some complexity. This particular school shares some parking lots with churches and synagogues, and we have some joint property space that we have to work through. We have IGAs we have to work through and look at that traffic flow, and whether or not we push sometimes streets all the way through. Again, multiple phases. This is what's called a 2-phase construction. So you have your design, you have the phase where you build, and then the phase where you tear down and replace with fields. So not quite as complex. And then here's another campus that we have in our case study 3. Again, field space, lots of field space out back. So in this particular, maybe this is the case where they get the classroom and the admin built up front, some of the parking lot, multi-purpose. Kids stay in school, we don't disrupt learning, and then we come in and take down, and it's a 2-phase process. But that isn't the only type of bond projects that we have. Another one is where you have a campus that wasn't quite meeting the needs of the students that we house in it. So in this particular case, we have a K-8 school that's lacking a couple critical components. The first being that we need a science facility for the students to address the science standards. And so when we look at that, one of the natural places to talk about in a design that they might put forward would be another wing that would be a science wing. Seems to naturally fit into that spot. So the timing is always about how do you protect the students. In this particular case, there's a good 20 feet on each side of that building, so it could be fenced off and construction not interfere with learning if we chose to put it there. It also allows itself to say, well, if we put a gymnasium on this particular campus, does it go to the back or does it go to the front? And it has 2 separate locations, and that would be a decision that the board would need to talk through in the early phases of design. If it comes to the front, you're near the fields, you're near the parking lot, you take advantage of the parking that already exists. In either case, you have to add to the traffic flow, and you have to add some safety for the science. You actually have to push that fire lane all the way back. So there's some pieces there that would have to be considered. Now, I put this up here because this week after our study session, there became a lot of chatter about, well, but this is our building, why would the city use it? No one said the city would use it. That was a designer's term. And the reality is, if our kids were playing softball on that softball field, rather than bring in some type of porta-john, it might behoove us to design bathrooms off the back of the gym that have the ability to lock off the gym side of it, but use it from the outside so that they can do that. If down the road we rented it for an event, we could then choose to allow a community event to use those facilities, that restroom. But it is a school facility, and we're a public school, and the public who, through their taxpayers, help us build things, like to use our facilities. It's a goodwill moment. Again, drop-off, trying to make sure that we have appropriate drop-off, and in this case, just looking at the aspect of a fire lane cul-de-sac that allows near that science building, if the fire trucks had to go in to that science area, we could get them there quickly. So it just kind of shows you the kind of work that goes through. Again, these were big overviews with no decisions, no direction. We didn't sit down with them and say, do this. We said, in this particular case, sent them out, met with the community, met with the principals, talked a little bit, and came back with just an overview. This is a very 100,000-foot view moment for us, but it's really difficult to talk about these without visuals for our community to understand what we're talking about. This is a one-year project. It's a build and secure kind of process, but it's not as lengthy. Probably 1 year is giving us plenty of time, but we don't know what we will face when we start getting into engineering and traffic control and the city folks and their process from the engineering perspective. So what are your next steps? Tonight you have an agenda that will say for the governing board to be able to move forward with either one rebuild or two rebuilds given the project that we did through our metrics. Here's what you would need to know. If you approved one rebuild, what would start is we would start into a design process right away. We would select that design team, the district team, the community would work with the principal, get the folks selected who are going to work with the architectural team from the learning side of the house. We'd go through procurement processes to get a construction firm in place. If we chose to do two designs, we're still staggering. So first design gets up and running, about 6 months later you start the second design. They don't start simultaneously. We really want to stagger them, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're doing, we've got to meet with a variety of stakeholders. Now, in this case, if we were to hypothetically say we're going to go forward with a HOPE. HOPE is a 21-month process. So we want to get that thing out of the chute and get working on it. It's going to take a while. If you look at HOHOCOM or PIMA, who were the top 3 rated schools when we did our metrics, you're talking about a slightly shorter process. It's not 21 months. You're probably talking more like 16 to 18 months. Because you have the land in which to do it. However, when you get into the other schools, you have other issues to discuss. You need to review the data. We need to talk about program review. We need to talk about the impact of other sites. And we really need to look at the whole Granite Reef corridor and have some discussions. If you approved both of those this evening, please know that the second one out from a district perspective would be the HOHOCOM, so we can have those deeper conversations about programs. We're out in the community right now asking about their desire for K-8. It's coming back very positive that the community would like a K-8. That shifts the design from what you're currently thinking. If it goes a K-8, does that mean that it's open for others as well? So there's deeper conversations to have at that time. Also in January, really important for us to talk about some other projects for you. So we just took you through a few rebuilds, but we have some other pieces that go simultaneous to the rebuild. And that is looking at some tracks and some football fields that aren't usable right now, that kids can't play, that we have some other schools that have some academic needs, some security, some safety issues of making sure that buildings have some of the lockdown procedures to the point that we need them. These are summer bond projects too, and we need to get those decided in January, including if we're going to move forward with Cheyenne, which was my case study 4, that would start right away, because that's a bit larger project that includes a gymnasium and a science wing, and certainly has a high priority because it has a science and educational space that's critical for the learning of the students. So we will be bringing to you in January the ask of, here are some top priorities that we see, what do you see, a process of that discussion, and then asking us to go forward with Cheyenne and some other projects to move forward for learning. And again, security, safety being critical in that discussion, along with learning space. So if we have learning space that cannot be used now or does not exist, it becomes a high priority for the governing board. So that's kind of where we're at. And we wanted to make sure that we got this on record for those who couldn't make our meeting to be able to log on and understand the process the governing board is going through. So tonight, you'll have in front of you two rebuilds. They will be staggered no matter what, because we don't want to miss any step. And I don't want to miss conversations and community conversations. And second to that, January, big conversation in January, Cheyenne and some other projects that we're bringing to you to say we'd like your approval so that those can get going at the same time. So that's where we're at for this evening. Mr. O'Brien and I are both here to have a conversation with you and answer any question that you might have. You're going to take all the questions.
Comments? Questions?
Okay, well, thank you. And for the community, the board had a very lengthy conversation last Thursday.
Yes. And the agenda that we have calls for it says that this is an action item, so we will.
So we amended that in the agenda because it really wasn't an action, and we apologize for that. It was an
You
information.
asked for 8E to be amended. 8D? Okay.
Well, I think we did keep one action item.
The one,
Just one was changed to an information, and then we kept the other action item, I believe.
okay. Gotcha, okay.
This is the correct order.
Mrs. Kirby?
Thank you for the recap of the meeting last Thursday and the presentation tonight. Since Thursday, as you stated, the three that bubbled up were Hopi, Hohokam, and Pima. And thank you for acknowledging the challenges that the Granite Reef Corridor present to us. Can you spend some time going a little bit deeper into what, if we move forward tonight on Hohokam, what does that lock us into? Because I heard you say that will take time, it could take 6 months. What are we locked into? Are we locked into rebuilding Hohokam, the school with the banner? Are we locked into rebuilding Hohokam at the Hohokam site? I'm just trying to understand what we're committing to if we move forward with that.
You're committing to starting a design process, which means that we're going to bring to you data, discussions, conversations. At any point in there, you need to make sure that you say this is the site, the location, the design, so the full study begins. What we do at that moment is pick an architectural firm to begin to work with us on that, but it will not, if you choose to go with Hohokam, it will not start a design phase for 4 to 6 months until the rest of the conversation occurs. Hopi is an overcrowding. So Hopi is where we're saying, look, there's not much conversation to have around Hopi. We're not going to, so Hopi is easier for us to say, look, it probably should be your #1 project. Second to that, on Hohokam, what you would be authorizing is that we have 2 projects on the table that we're going to begin a process. And during the first 4 months of this year, we're going to talk about the enrollment, who's housed in the school, and it's going to be intertwined with some Granite Reef conversation, because when you look at the numbers, and Dr. McCauley and I were going through those today, in most of the schools along the corridor, anywhere from 80 to 85% of the students are from their local neighborhood. Then you have another 15% that come from various places, and I think it's really important for the board to study that and understand it, and understand if the school that is there is attracting those from outside the district as well, or within the Scottsdale boundaries, to choose that school as a location. So Hohokam has 460 kids in it. It's in the 400s, high 400s. But it also sits next to a neighbor that's a slightly smaller school, so you need to study both of those schools in tandem along with the corridor, because there's some other tandem pieces to study. So you're not obligating yourself yet until you approve the actual design And when you go through that process, remember that part of the process of design, the architect will come here with some preliminaries to say, here's what we're thinking on the rebuild and the location on the site. We're asking the board's approval to move to the next step, because the one thing we don't want to do is put a school and then you say, well, we didn't envision you'd put it back at this back wall. We thought you were going to put it more towards the center. So before we actually get into the full design process, you're going to actually approve the site, the location of that school rebuild. So you have some time along there to say, I don't like the way this is moving, and I don't feel comfortable with it.
Okay, can I?
Does that help?
Mrs. Kirby?
Yeah, it helps me a little bit. Okay, so we've said before that the target size for an elementary school is 500 to 700 with the ability to house 800 as a maximum. When we've said that, are we including pre-K in that number or not?
President Snead, Governing Board, Mrs. Kirby, thank you for that question. We should, when you look at it from an academic perspective, we should look at preschool. And the reason that we should consider preschool, either we have a separate location in a neighborhood or we actually use the site. If we're going to use Title I funds, it must be at the zip code of the school. So to fund a school that's a Title I school, you need to house the preschool in that school. And that's important when we look at particularly our title schools, having an opportunity to provide an academic readiness in preschool for kindergarten is going to help that student be successful in school. In any one of our title schools, we should always think preschool is going to be housed there. And that allows us to tap into the funding to support under title.
Okay, well, I'm torn. Thank you for that. That helps a little bit because Hohokam with pre-K is sitting at 491. Yavapai with pre-K is at 392. So we have two schools 2.2 miles from each other that are below the 500, the minimum. And then 2.2 miles to the west, we have another school that's sitting vacant. So my struggle is I don't know what I'm building that area. I don't know what I'm approving for that area to look like in the future. And that's where
So,
I'm.
yes, so let me help you a little bit
I'm
with that.
struggling with like saying this is the school that we're going to go with first when I don't know where we're going.
Yeah, so Holcomb is 491, but preschool added is actually 530 from my notes of my friends. Don't give me bad numbers, Dr. McCauley. Okay. So, but that minus, let's just say you're sitting with a high 490 area. Let's just use that. That's a good figure. So here's the other issue with Holcomb. You get an A+ school. It's got a very strong robotics program, STEM program that has been going on there. I think it's attracting, when I look at where the kids come from, it's attracting from within the Scottsdale boundaries from other schools, including that 40 of the students sitting at Holcomb are from Yavapai, including that we have students who choose, 61 students from Tonalea who choose to go to Holcomb. So it means that it has also become a school of choice for our community in the South. Now, that said, we've heard from the community with a very high 85% or so that are saying they'd like to be a K-8 school. If the board approves this, what I would recommend in January is that we have a deeper conversation right away and start talking about what is Hohokam going to be. Is it going to be a K-8? And if it's going to be a K-8, that plays into the design process. I will say that if families are already choosing it and you build a new school there that actually enhances and enriches those programs, I believe that you're going to find others choosing to go there from neighboring schools, including ours. So it's a very strong program that I think is easy to support, that Hohokam, by the way, is also a very costly school from the aspect of trying to maintain it. It needs a lot of help. And if I'm correct, and Danny can correct me on this, but every time we have a plumbing issue there, we have to jackhammer up the floors. And it is extremely costly, and we're breaking pipes every year. So it's a campus that really can't sustain long-term. So whether today or whether in January, Hohokam is a conversation we're going to be having with you. Thank you.
Mrs. Hartman, did you have a light on?
That answered my question.
Oh, okay. Dr. Birdwell, I just wanted to say a couple things. One of the things that I've asked for several times is something that gives us, and I know you can't predict the future, but the loss of enrollment risk in closing a particular campus. We know that there are a lot of schools also that have high numbers of attendees that walk, that don't use bus service. And to me, in order to make any decision going forward, when you talk about some of the campuses, I hope the board will keep in mind the potential loss of revenue. It's not just about cost, it's also about potential loss of revenue. Also, the loss of revenue, well, if enrollment would leave, if there's competition nearby that they could go to, and then if they hear that their campus might be consolidated or closing, well, they just leave, and then you end up not having the revenue savings that some are asking for to be distributed back to the rest of the schools. And so it just wouldn't be realized. And then also the cost of busing, because it would be more than a mile away, that a lot of the walkers would be going more than a mile away. The cost of busing that goes on and on and on and on. I'd like anybody who comes, to the table to make some of these decisions to consider these things, because it used to be a given before open enrollment that if you changed a boundary or you closed a school, your community would just comply and they would go wherever you told them to go. They might be upset about it, but now there are just so many options, and I would hate to see us shoot ourselves in the foot if we're only concentrating on the cost side rather than the service side. And I hope that at all times we're thinking most about serving our communities and serving our neighborhood students.
So President, State Governing Board, thank you for those comments. My colleague next to me here has said, I can do that. So that said, we certainly, those are the kinds of conversations we're going to have going forward, and that's why I say it's really a Granite Reef corridor study. There's a lot of intertwining and moving within the corridor, at the corridor, so they don't necessarily leave the corridor. And I'm going to say Pueblo, Navajo, Pima, Yavapai, and Hohokam, families travel between those 5 schools from what I've been able to study. So I look forward to bringing you that study and having that discussion. One thing that is certain, the South End schools are old, and Hohokam probably being the worst in that case. So very confident if the board chose to go that direction, that we would address these issues as we go forward simultaneously. Remember again that the design process would be behind the first one, and so you'd have about 4 or 5 months of heavy discussions to have, and I think they're really critical. But again, Hohokam, great school. I can't say enough great things about what's going on down there. Chuck's doing a fabulous job, and very supportive community. So a very solid school. 491 is nothing to blink an eye at all. So good school, A+ last year. So thank you.
Mrs. Hartman, did you have a comment?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Birdwell, and thank you to the team that's been putting a lot of this data together. It's been very helpful, so thank you very much. One point I just wanted to underscore, as we move into January, we talk about the, whether we call it the Granite Reef Corridor or the larger entire package. A piece of the conversation that I think would be really helpful is really understanding from kind of the data, best practice, what else is in the community, kind of the K-8 versus the elementary versus middle school. There is no doubt in my mind that parents are all very passionate about, one versus the other. I was one of those parents myself. But there's pluses and minuses on both of those, and that's not something that's exactly intuitive to the community. So if we could bring those forward on kind of the pluses and minuses, the benefits and the challenges with a K-8 versus elementary middle school, I think that needs to be a really important part of the discussion so that it's an informed discussion, that all stakeholders have that information. Is that a reasonable request, or any comments on that?
Yeah, President Sneed, Mrs. Hartman, it's a very reasonable discussion and need, and you are absolutely right, and we can bring you a nice T-chart to show you the pros and cons of each model, and these models exist throughout our state. So you'll see school districts with pre-K 2s, pre-K 3s, you'll see a K 4s, you actually see K 5s, you see K 6s, and you'll see 7 8s, you'll see 6 8s. The only one that stays constant is the 9 12s. So there's a constant accordion move, and it really has to do more with preference and choices than it does. But there are some academic pieces tied to it that we can talk about from research. So we can bring you the research side of that and have a very succinct conversation. Here's what I would also say to that. The state of Arizona is a choice state. We need to embrace that and understand that we're not going to reverse it. That means that families choose where they want their child to go to school. And if you were to talk about closing down one school and you didn't have within an appropriate area a better choice, they will choose another school that's been put there. And trust me, our if you want to call them our competition, they study those pieces. There's a reason that a Great Hearts is along a corridor, easy to get to and drop off a student versus in the middle of a neighborhood. So if you talk, whether it's and I have the deepest respect for Great Hearts and what they do, and for Basis and others, that is the world that Arizona lives in. So you will never hear from me, we do better than them moment, or us versus them. The reality is, we're a choice state. Are we providing the very best for our students and giving our families the best choice? And when you look at the whole corridor and you see a lot of aging, what is the best choice for a family right now? If I want dual language, I either go to Phoenix or I come to Pueblo. And when we hear from families that come into Pueblo, I like what you're doing, but boy, this school's a wreck. They're not far-fetched. I was just there this week and spoke with the faculty, and they expressed that frustration that they tour a family, and the family says, but are you going to get a little nicer school at some point? So, and that's a legitimate question for a family to ask, and the parking lot's a nightmare to get into. And so, families look at those things, and in the real estate market, we all understand curb appeal. Well, guess what? In school choice, curb appeal has started to play in. And I'm not saying that's the reason to build a school. Don't get me wrong on that. But families look for a great looking school that's safe, that's healthy, that provides the best education. And so they look for once they get past the door, they're looking for the programs. They're looking for the customer service. They're making sure that the teachers that are in there have the highest quality of teachers. So it's a big overall picture. And while we're rebuilding, we should consider that big picture of, hey, not only do we want beautiful buildings, but let's take care of the education. And you've heard me say this 100 times, take care of the education first, and that won't be far removed from our conversation. But if you're going to close a school, you have to ask yourself, what alternative have I given that family to go to in this neighborhood? And have I given them something better to choose? Because if you don't have a good choice, then you're just really asking that dollar to go out of the district to another alternative that might exist around the corner. Or that conversation may promote somebody to build around the corner because we've delayed a build. So those are big conversations, and I appreciate the fact that you all are thinking about those things, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and continue to talk to you about them.
Mrs. Perleberg?
Well, I want to say thank you to you for bringing this conversation forward the way that you have. As we stated in our work study, the tools that you've brought our board and our administration and even our community to kind of evaluate and look at these issues that we've faced for many, many years. I've lived in the Granite Reef Corridor now, as Dr. Nance well knows, and our schools were facing these questions at least 8 years ago or more. And so here we are, finally. These are conversations our community has had to have for a very long time. So thank you, and I want to thank other members of the board for highlighting the complexity of the Granite Reef Corridor, the Saguaro-Coronado complex. As you state, I said living there, I well know the enrollments are very intertwined, and it's a very complicated scenario where there's no two great puzzle pieces that just fit perfectly together. And we've known that for a very long time, and it hasn't the problem hasn't gotten better with age, let's put it that way. So I think it is incredibly important that we highlight tonight whatever decision is made, if a first step is discussed, or at least a first little baby step towards discussions in the Granite Reef Corridor, in the Coronado Complex, Saguaro Complex, because it's connected. It is incredibly important, I think, that our communities understand that there's going to be a lot of much bigger discussions, more complicated discussions. They are intertwined, and there's just not one plug we can totally pull that doesn't affect the others as well. So January, February, March, I do hesitate as well tonight to carve something in stone that we could in the next 3 months have to adjust because of that bigger picture. So as long as we highlight that tonight and are clear, I'm excited to move forward because it's time.
Thank you. President Sneed and Governing Board, again, these designs were done on very long timeframes for a reason. We do not want to rush through any one of these construction projects, and you want to take your time to have full dialogue. So please understand, we believe that we can take that time and have those deep discussions with the community, and appreciate you recognizing that as we go forward.
Mrs. Hartman, you're blinking in public.
It's the holidays, you can blink.
On the next agenda, so we just did the processes and approvals, and so you actually have F. You can actually approve.
Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda then is 8F, approval of Hohokam and Hopi Elementary Schools for rebuild.
Looking for a motion?
Do we have a motion? Is there a motion?
I have a question.
Ms. Hartman.
Do we need to rephrase that motion for that action item based on the discussion we had this evening?
President Sneed, Governor Board, you can rephrase that motion however you would like it to custom, given the conversation and your comfortability. When we first put this together a week ago, we took it from the study session, but we want you to have the flexibility to make the motion as you feel you're comfortable with as far as that goes. Even to the point that you could direct one first and one second.
Mrs. Kirby.
Could we phrase this motion to direct or approve one rebuild and approve the second school without the rebuild, but for discussion, prioritize discussion over the next 90 days? So we're not moving forward to authorize for a I'm trying to figure out, do we have to do the rebuild approval tonight? Let's be honest, for Hohokam, or can we discuss, as you said, over the next 90 days and then make that decision in, I don't know, might be 30 days?
Can I add to that question?
Perleberg.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess what I'm kind of struggling with too is, let's say if we made a motion to rebuild Hopi, and the question becomes with Hohokam, what step it's prioritized in our discussion of it, but is there some sort of procurement that really, it doesn't matter what our discussions lead to, but it could get, that process could be started so that when the discussions end, it's ready to go. Is that a reality?
Yeah, President Sneed, what I would recommend is that you would approve two projects, that Hopi be the first project, which starts the procurement process immediately, with the second process being approved but not to begin for 6 months, allowing for further dialogue and discussion with the governing board.
Okay, so there's no.
So you're
no other
approving them
process.
both, but you're saying that the first one starts immediately, and the second one it has a 6-month delay, allowing for conversation. During that time frame, if the board said, you know, it's not the one I want to go with, I want to go with a different one, you could reverse that decision, because no money would have been expended,
Except for the design process.
except for just beginning some conversation in the design process. So you haven't expended the dollars, you haven't procured a construction site yet, because we'd be in the discussion design process with the governing board during that first phase.
Mrs. Kirby?
Dr. Birdwell, do we get ourselves into any kind of trouble if we specifically call out a 6-month delay in the event we can move faster than that?
No, because the reality is we can't move faster than that. We're going to design one, and then we'll begin the next design. We really would like to not be in the design of 2 major rebuilds at the same time. From a staffing perspective, we just simply don't have the staff oversight.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and
Mrs. Perlenberg?
And I guess to that point, because we are going to be having in January, February discussions on the more short-term projects that we have ahead of us as well. So that.
So thank you, Ms. Steve. Ms. Perlenberg, you just know that the reason we don't have is we're not focusing on just 2 things. We have a bunch of other projects that we are going to be doing simultaneously with the first build, so we need to stagger ourselves in order to do it appropriately. So your approval tonight for the rebuilds is just to allow us to begin this process, the first one. And then the second one is that school and community knows that they're teed up, which means the conversation with the community is going to happen, because that's a big part of this.
And I can understand it would be very difficult to start having conversations with the community if you don't have the board support.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Sneed. The communities are just sitting on their hands right now, and from spending a little time with Pueblo this week, trust me, I don't know that I have 30 schools that aren't saying, when's mine? So January will get very exciting for the other projects too. They're anxious for January's conversation. So, but we would not, without the board's approval, want to talk to Hohokam and get any further down the trail without the board approval.
So the recommendation that we have says that it is recommended that the governing board approve the first 2 school sites for the rebuild, Hohokam and Hopi. This recommendation allows the board to move forward with design process and community input. In addition, the staff will begin construction company formal bidding. And that's what's before us, in case somebody doesn't have that agenda.
And so I think that the board would want to clarify that the first project would move forward with the construction bidding process, and the second would begin just a design process, because we wouldn't want to get a construction firm under procurement and then change our mind. So we need to clarify that last piece there.
Okay.
Okay.
Mrs. Hartman?
So are we ready for the motion? I'll propose a motion. I move for the approval of the Hopi rebuild and a prioritized discussion of Hohokam.
Is there a second?
Is that?
And authorize us to go out for construction procurement for Hopi.
All right. And authorize us to pursue the construction procurement process for Hopi.
And I will second that.
Okay, and Mr. Jackson, I see your light is on, I'm sorry.
That was a mistake.
Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, and that motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
The next item is future items. Board members may propose topics for future consideration. Load it on now, guys.
You have no space.
I think we just did.
Okay. Dates of upcoming meetings. Oh, Mrs. Hartman, did you have something? Okay. Dates of upcoming meetings. Thursday, January 12th at 3 p.m., a study session here. Tuesday, January 17th at 5 p.m., regular governing board meeting. I'm sorry, the study session will be at Mojave District Annex. The regular governing board meeting on the 17th will be here. Thursday, February 9th at 3 p.m., a study session at Mojave District Annex. Tuesday, February 14th at 5 p.m., a governing board meeting here. And at this time, are there any governing board reports? Mr. Jackson.
This is my last, board member report. And I attended a couple things since our last board meeting. One was the Saguaro High School championship football game, which was wonderful, of course. Also attended another bus business education breakfast, which I can't exactly recall the date, but it was 3 weeks ago. November 29th, thank you. And we had another outstanding business community breakfast with the bus organization and great speakers, and that initiative continues to progress, and it's turning into a pretty wonderful initiative to collaborate between the business community, the school district, Scottsdale Community College, the Chamber of Commerce, the City of Scottsdale. It's an incredible initiative, and we're making good progress there. And finally, I also had the privilege of going to the Mojave, hosted the first Lego Robotics tournament this past Saturday, and it was another outstanding tournament hosted by Mojave, and student run, and it ran incredibly well. So, and I did want to take one last time, as I said earlier in this evening, it's been an incredible privilege serving on this board all these years, and I have nothing, I think this Scottsdale Unified School District is in a very good place, and we have a very bright future, and we're rebuilding schools, old aging schools into modern, new, efficient schools. We have student achievement programs in place to improve student achievement, and it's very exciting. I think the community's excited about where we're going as a school district, and as a governing board member whose term is ending here very quickly, it's exciting and very heartwarming to see where we are going as a school district. And I think we have the wind at our back. And I just want to say last thing real quickly, it's been a privilege serving with all of you on the board here. We haven't always agreed, but I've never doubted for a minute your commitment to our kids and schools, and thank you.
Mrs. Hartman, is it real this time?
It is real, thank you. All right, so a couple of activities, it's been a busy month. I've had the opportunity to actually attend the Charles Community Celebration on November 16th, along with Dr. Birdwell and some leadership team members, which was a wonderful event that connected the business community along with the education community. Also, along with Board Member Perleberg, had the opportunity to, and Board Member Sneed, had the opportunity to attend the Scottsdale Leadership Luncheon with Principal Nikki Wilford and Dr. Birdwell and leadership team members, acknowledging one of our outstanding Desert Mountain School recipients. And then also under the umbrella of community engagement and academic achievement, had the opportunity to work on a couple of initiatives that I'll just share just a little bit of highlights. And if any board members, future board members, or community members are interested in learning more, I'm always open for the conversation. But we're continuing to pursue a collaborative relationship with the Charles, as well as ASU, in a design challenge for our Coronado community, and there'll be more information that's shared about that, but it's very exciting. And secondly, a workforce initiative that Dr. Birdwell and I had the opportunity to meet with a representative, a leadership representative of the Partnership of Economic Innovation, which is an outgrowth of GPEC, which is a workforce initiative that we may be able to pursue a really interesting position that's a regional and state initiative and workforce initiative. So more to come on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Perleberg.
Very, very quickly, I just wanted to say, as a Saguaro parent, congratulations to Ms. Oxinger. We in the community are very excited and very happy that you are now permanent. And I also say very quickly, I attended the 8th grade Mojave choir concert at Saguaro, and the 8th graders and middle schoolers 7th, they have a huge program there at Mojave in the choir, and it's wonderful. But it was aided very well by Mr. Taveld, and it was a pleasure to see you up there with the students, and they did a fantastic job. So I just had to call you out a little bit on that. Great job. Thank you.
And I just very quickly want to congratulate Dr. Birdwell and thank everybody for a great 8 years. I'm very embedded in this community, and I hope something springs up that will let me stay involved with the future of our children in this community. So and thank you for everybody for your friendship and your support over the years. And with that, for the last time, I make a motion to adjourn. Oh, please, Mrs. Kirby. Oh. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And
All
that
right,
motion
now,
passes
we are going to
5-0.
bring out a couple gifts and some cookies, and hope that you hang around for just a moment while we present our board members, our 2 board members, with a gift, a token on behalf of the governing board and the cabinet.
Tell me it's not our old laptops.
You get to take your laptop.
It made it, barely.
Sweet bye.
Maureen.